So out of Mobile World Congress 2022, Realme has finally unveiled the global edition of its fancy pants GT2 Pro flagship smartphone. And the big whoop here is that it offers a premium all-round mobile experience, except for a bit less cash than most of its rivals, so hopefully you've got enough left in your savings to treat yourself to a Greg's steak bake or two, maybe a bottle of Lambrini. Packed inside of this thing is that Byyyeeee Big Bollocks Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset. You've got a 2K Super Reality display, 50 megapixel dual primary camera, basically all the shiz that it lists right here on the back of the box. But enough chatter, let's whip the Realme GT2 Pro out of the box, take you on a full-on tour of that hardware and software, and for more than the latest greatest tech, please do plug subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so what have we got in this lovely white box? Well, naturally one Realme GT2 Pro, a big old beefy super dart charge adapter, some USB cable action, and there's also a bundled prophylactic case that you can wrap around your Realme blower and keep it nice and pristine. And that's it, job done, nothing more to see here. No, nothing except for the giant 3D printed cat thing, I guess, who apparently is the new mascot, Real Meow? Let's see what a real cat thinks of Real Meow. Yep, doesn't seem too interested. So let's start with design, and the Realme GT2 Pro sports a very different finish from most modern smartphones, which are generally constructed from glass, certainly the more premium models, whereas the posterior of this Realme blower is apparently constructed from a bio-based polymer, the production of which involves less carbon emissions, so therefore it's more environmentally friendly. Hooray for nature and trees and stuff. And as well as being good for the planet and all of that, it's also quite aesthetically pleasing, this polymer back end as well, because as you can see there, it doesn't get all smudgy and greasy and nasty like most smartphone arse ends do. Plus, as an added bonus, apparently that back end is tougher than a rhino's arse cheek as well, so you can give it a proper bashing about, try and scratch it and scuff it, and it will resist everything you throw at it. And if you squint real close, you'll see what Realme has termed a paper style pattern, which definitely adds a bit of texture to that back end. And yeah, perhaps maybe just a little bit it feels like you're stroking paper for whatever reason, but actually to me, after a while, it just kind of feels like those sort of more affordable plastic smartphones from back in the day you'd get with the textured back end. So for me at least, I think the Realme GT2 Pro looks very snazzy indeed, and certainly is a bit different from the rest of the smartphone crowd, but it doesn't quite feel as premium as some of its rivals when you're actually clutching it. If you're not a fan of the design, despair ye not. This is the paper green model. You can also grab this Realme blower in paper white, which sports a similar sort of design. Otherwise, it also comes in a steel black variant, which is more of your typical glossy phone finish. Unfortunately, no proper water resistance here on the Realme GT2 Pro, or at the very least no official IP rating anyway, so I wouldn't go taking it into the shower or into a nice hot bubbly bath with you just in case. Still, in addition to the tough polymer back, you do have a Gorilla Glass Victus display, and that is coated in a pre-installed screen protector as well, just as well because Victus does tend to scratch up rather easily, even if it is shatter resistant. So anyway, let's move on from the lovely design of this smartphone to the actual software that is running on it, and what you got is the latest Android 12, of course, as you would expect from a more premium style device, with the Realme UI 3 launcher slathered on top there. And this is still essentially ColorOS by another name, which means you get a pretty stock Android vibe like most launchers these days. You've got your apps tray, you've got your Google Discover feed, you've got your notifications bar pulled down from anywhere on screen with all of those toggles built in as well. There's no separate control center as there are on some rivals like MIUI. And because this is Android 12, you've got some of those excellent privacy features on there, such as the ability to revoke camera and mic access to all apps just with a quick tap like so. You also get quite a few apps pre-installed on here, unfortunately, when you first set up your smartphone, including your TikToks, your LinkedIns, your Booking.coms. It is a minor pain in the arse. You just have to go through and uninstall all of the crap that you don't want to free up some storage. Booking.com can bugger off.com, frankly. And Realme UI does add a bunch of bonus features on top of Android, which are mostly tucked away here in the settings menu, which can be a little bit tricksy if you aren't used to it. There's quite a lot of stuff, and quite a lot of it is hidden. One of my favorite sections is personalizations. This allows you to quickly change up the wallpapers, the icons. You can also change up the colors of the UI based on the wallpaper that you are using. You can customize the fingerprint sensor animation. You can also play around with the edge lighten feature, which is kind of a makeshift notifications light style affair. And of course, stick on an always on display. You can actually craft your own always on display, otherwise you've got a good selection of digital and analog efforts, whatever your heart desires. From these settings, where you can also set up that in-display fingerprint sensor and the face unlock. pretty quick and easy to do. And so far, touch wood, no jip at all from that in-display fingerprint sensor. It is just a basic optical effort, not an ultrasonic scanner, but it seems absolutely fine. It still seems perfectly responsive. And as I say that, of course, it completely fails to recognize me, which is pretty bloody typical because it's had absolutely no troubles whatsoever in the dozens of other times I've unlocked it so far. And yeah, as an alternative, you do have face unlock as well, which again seems to be swift and responsive, if not the most secure out there. It does still seem to work more often than not when I'm wearing a face mask, but at least you do have options like require eyes to be open, tucked away there in the settings. And as I mentioned before, you've got those excellent Android 12 privacy features, so you can see exactly what your apps are up to, revoke their privileges, etc. And then there's just loads of extra bonus bits as well. You've got some emergency features tucked away in there. With special features, you've got the likes of the kid space. It's quite handy if you have to hand your phone to your offspring to keep them bloody quiet. You don't want them poking around in all of your private photos, etc. You've got a dedicated gaming mode as well, which I will touch on when we hit performance. Oh, and as for the storage, where you got 256 gigs of the stuff packed inside of here, which I think you can find just here in the About Device section. As you can see, a reasonable chunk of that taken up by system and of course by apps, because you've got so much stuff pre-installed. But thankfully still plenty of space remaining, just as well as there's no micro SD memory card support. If we actually pull out that SIM tray, you'll see you've got space for 2 SIMs simultaneously, but there's absolutely bugger all room in there for a micro SD memory card. So let's shift onto the display tech, and the Realme GT2 Pro boasts a mighty 6.7-inch LTPO AMOLED panel, quite similar to some rivals from the likes of the Oppo Find X5 Pro, other premium priced devices, except it's a perfectly flat display similar to the Samsung Galaxy S22. Got a WQHD plus resolution here, so nice crisp visuals as long as you remember to actually go into the settings and bump it up from the default Full HD plus maximum resolution. Because it's an AMOLED panel, you've got nice vibrant colors on the default vivid display settings, so really poppy, perfect for your anime, your animation. If you want to though, you can jump on into those display settings and change it to the Pro mode if you want a more natural looking output, and apparently this panel has a just noticeable color difference of 0.5, which means it is capable of very accurate color reproduction. You've got pleasingly deep blacks, nice sharp contrast on there, all of the benefits you usually get from an AMOLED display, wide viewing angles as well, and on top brightness as well, no issues there. And yes, it is an LTPO panel as well, all the rage these days, which means it covers the full range of refresh rates, all the way from 1 Hz all the way up to 120 Hz. So 1 Hz perfect for just viewing a static image, preserves your battery life. 120 Hz great for that supported content to get a really nice smooth finish, and the Realme GT2 Pro can auto select the refresh to suit whatever content you are digesting. So that's the visuals, but what about the audio? Well, you've got a stereo speaker set up here on the Realme GT2 Pro, as you would expect from a more premium smartphone. So let's boost up the volume and see if it's actually any good. A full-on tour of the hardware and the software, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So yeah, overall, not bad sound at all. You do get more powerful audio blasted out of this bottom speaker, so the audio overall is slightly unbalanced, but pretty crisp and clear still on that top volume. You got full Dolby Atmos support on there as well. No headphone jack, unfortunately, as usual, but you've got your dependable Bluetooth support if you want to stream wirelessly instead. So let's transition onto performance. And the Realme GT2 Pro is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset. It's quite a popular flagship platform found in quite a lot of recent premium devices like the Oppo Find X5 Pro, the Vivo iQOO 9 Pro as well, if you saw my unboxing of that recently. Benchmarking scores very impressive indeed, that's for sure. Certainly one of the most powerful SoCs that you'll find on a smartphone right now. And in fact, the benchmarking scores here on the Realme smartphone beat the Oppo Find X5 Pro, as you can see there. So you shouldn't see any performance degradation over time, certainly not for a good long while. This is built for power users and of course gamers. In fact, courtesy of that Realme UI 3 launch, you do have a dedicated gaming mode on here, which you can just yank out at any point like so. This offers all kinds of tools, including a performance mode where you can really dedicate all of the phone's resources to your current title. You've got the Do Not Disturb mode as well, quite handy if your boss is rudely asking for some sort of progress update while you're halfway through your Genshin Impact mission. And speaking of Genshin, other Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 smartphones have been able to handle this memory goblin monster absolutely no worries whatsoever, so that's immediately what is started my gaming test with here on the Realme GT2 Pro, with the graphics settings boosted up to the highest levels and the frame rate maxed out at 60 FPS as well, naturally. And yeah, absolutely no issues at all. A couple of little judders here and there when the action got pretty intensive, but overall that frame rate stayed stable at 60 FPS. A brilliantly playable experience, very enjoyable with those lush, gorgeous high-res visuals. And yeah, there are reports out there of Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 blowers heating up under duress. And yeah, this Realme handset did get a little bit toasty around the back after a good sort of 30-40 minutes of Genshin Impact action, but nothing too troublesome. That's mostly down to the fact that Realme has stuffed in a generous sized stainless steel vapor chamber inside of the GT2 Pro. It's grown in size versus the original smartphone. You've also got diamond thermal gel to help shift that heat away from the internals and keep the phone cool. And the GT2 Pro also boasts Realme's antenna array matrix system, which consists of 12 separate antennas scattered around the edges of that smartphone. You'll actually see the various antenna bands on every single edge of this thing. So this means no matter how you're clutching this smartphone, you'll still get a strong networking signal, whether you're using the Wi-Fi 6 or a good bit of the 5G action. As for the battery tech, well, it's once again a 5,000 mAh capacity battery crammed inside of the Realme GT2 Pro, just like the Oppo Find X5 Pro, which I'm currently testing out. And like that Oppo blower, once again, magnificent battery life on this thing. I tend to find you get around sort of at least 6 to 7 hours of screen on time in a day. And that's with pretty heavy usage as well. A good bit of camera action, bit of Genshin Impact occasionally, a good bit of movie streaming. So again, this smartphone should suit more demanding users down to the ground, no worries. And when you do finally run out of juice, well, you got support for that 65 watt super dart charge tech. So again, even though it's a massive battery, it won't take very long to fill up whatsoever once you plug it in with the bundled adapter. Unfortunately, no wireless charging support though, especially down to the fact that you've got that polymer backing, but it's also possibly a cost-saving measure. So last up for this Realme GT2 Pro unboxing and tour, let's have a squint at that camera tech slapped on the back end, spearheaded by a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 sensor with optical image stabilization, the same sensor recently found in the Realme 9 Pro Plus. And yes, the Realme 9 Pro Plus is a considerably cheaper smartphone than the GT2 Pro, but it did impress for its camera performance at least. And that is a dependable Sony sensor for sure, so I'm hoping that you get some really nice looking photos out of this thing as well. And indeed, here is a small selection of sample shots that I've snapped with the Realme GT2 Pro, and certainly seems like a perfectly capable everyday blower, if not quite up there with the very best smartphone snappers right now. Shots of living subjects tend to come out well with minimal motion blur, strong detail levels even indoors in quite ambient light as well, although things do get a bit gritty once the lighting really drops. Oh, and I saw some serious light halo action on the go at times as well, so be careful shooting around a strong light source. You got the usual AI mode smarts and all kinds of bonus bits as well, including the likes of the portrait mode. You got a 50 megapixel resolution mode as well if you want to shoot at the maximum resolution, quite good if you want to crop into your shots later. Got a night mode as well, which kind of help to brighten up your snaps when it is very, very dim indeed. And just like Vivo's iQOO 9 Pro, you've also got a 150 degree ultra wide angle shooter. And this uses a 50 megapixel Samsung JN1 sensor. And as you can see, this can fit tons of stuff into frame if you're trying to shoot something that's absolutely bloody enormous. And you've also got a fisheye option as well, although this isn't quite as flexible and quite as much fun as the one found on that Vivo blower. As for the final shooter here on the Realme GT2 Pro, well, this is a ultra macro snapper, so if you want to get really up close and personal to your subject, can be quite fun, but I can't really see many real life applications of this lens, I've got to admit, beyond just like keeping the kids amused for a few minutes. And then last up, for your home movie requirements, you can shoot 4K footage at either 30 or 60 frames per second, or you can even bump all the way up to a mighty 8K resolution if you want to absolutely cane that storage space. And yeah, so far perfectly happy with the video outcome here. You've got a nice sharp visuals at that 4K level, nice smooth finish if you do bump it up to the 60 frames per second. Clear audio capture as well, so all around definitely good for your home movies. And then last up around front, you've got that 32 megapixel selfie shooter, which again seems absolutely perfectly capable with full portrait smart and all that good stuff. And using that there selfie cam, you can shoot up to full HD resolution video as well, as I am doing right here. No 4K Ultra HD action, unfortunately, but the video quality is perfectly fine if you just want to do a simple vlog or something. Audio pickup seems alright as well. And there you have it. That in a nutshell is the Realme GT2 Pro Global Edition. And as you can see, if you want a flagship blower, but for a bit of a nicer price, well, it's definitely a worthy option. Just cuts out some of the super premium features like wireless charging support. Don't have a telephoto camera lens on there either, for instance. But if you want something that's got a respectable camera output, you got strong performance on there, good enough for gaming quite happily, decent battery life, a gorgeous AMOLED display, and perfectly flat as well, so again, perfect for gaming. Should certainly do the job very nicely indeed. I don't know the official UK asking price or release date just yet, because I'm shooting this ahead of the official MWC launch, but that should hopefully pop up in the video description down below once it's actually revealed. So check out the rest of my MWC spurt for more hot new smartphones that are launching out here in Barcelona. Please do poke, subscribe, and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.